So the Republican grudge match continued this week with the runoffs, and we have had several more House members who were picked off by Governor Abbott and Attorney General Paxton. So these grudge matches have been settled at the ballot box now, but what happens now going forward with these factions of Republican leaders in this state? Political consultant and Travis County Republican Party Chairman Matt Mackowiak joining us here. Matt, thanks so much for being on with us after a momentous week for the party here in Texas. I just have to start off asking you, what does this next legislative session look like now?
Yeah, look, this is the most divisive primary and primary runoff, in the modern era in Texas politics. Most divisive I can remember, most money spent, most controversy, the largest number of attacks, and to have this many incumbents get beat. I think the governor last night, or in the last couple of days, has said that he believes he's flipped basically 15 votes on school choice alone. I mean, that's an unusually large number to flip in one election cycle, particularly when you're just talking about on the primary side. So, look, the session I think is a huge question mark. It starts with who is the speaker.
Yeah.
It's now clear Dave Phelan wants to run for another term, a third term. I think that's uncertain.
Yeah, you've got
he lost.
the Attorney General threatening other Republicans if they vote for him for Speaker again. But, Phelan's insisting he's going to be Speaker again. Does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, those factions are not gonna, they're not gonna evaporate. The factions are still there. The opinions are still there. The hurt feelings are still there. They tried to beat Phelan and they didn't. Now they did get rid of his number of his lieutenants. They got rid of members that weren't on board with school choice. There were a lot of gains from the sort of conservative grassroots side that are significant, but in the end, Phelan is coming back. And I don't think right now you can say with certainty he will not be speaker. I probably thought that maybe 2 weeks ago. Not necessarily sure that, but of course, to do that, he's going to have to put a large coalition together, almost certainly with a large number of Democrats in it, and that would create a lot of problems with the Senate, probably with the governor. Certainly, problems related to how many Democratic chairs you'd have, whether school choice would pass. So I think that a lot of House Republicans are looking at this and saying, do we have to go through that, or is there a different pathway? It's still really early. This primary runoff just happened. People who are running now are probably not going to be the ultimate choice. These things generally break late. And we also have to see who wins in November, because only the people that win in November are going to have a vote in the speaker's race.
But how much do you think that we are likely to see school vouchers get through this time? As you mentioned, the governor has been very successful in taking out a lot of the opponents of that on the Republican side and replacing them with people who might go along there. How likely are we to see vouchers move through in this legislative session?
Yeah, look, Governor Greg Abbott is the biggest winner from the primary and primary runoff by far. I mean, he had a lot invested, raised massive amounts of money, expended massive amounts of money, endorsed a lot of candidates who are pro-school choice, whether they be incumbent or challenger or open seat races. And I think he flipped 15 votes. I think he was 9 short in the last special session. He was 11 short in the last special session. He picked up, I think, 9 of those votes in March 4th, and he picked up another 6 with the runoff. So he's in a position now to almost be absolutely certain he's going to get a school choice bill through the House and the Senate for the first time in Texas history. But the question is going to be, again, about House leadership. I think we have to come back to that on almost every question you ask, because we know who the governor is going to be. We know who the lieutenant governor is going to be. We have a pretty good idea who's going to be in the Senate. There's not a lot of question of that. And even in the House, I think we have a pretty good idea what the range is going to be between Republicans and Democrats. What we don't know is who the leader is going to be. Is that person going to be pro-school choice? How many Democratic chairs are they going to appoint? Are they going to be more reform-minded? Are they going to be more conservative? Are they going to be more interested in advancing the platform? These are big questions. And right now, as we sit here, we don't know the answer.
Matt, last thing before we let you go here, you had an unsuccessful last-minute bid for state party chair of the Republican Party, and you didn't have a lot of positive things to say about the state of the party here, and you wanted to get in there and sort of shake things up, and you didn't have the greatest things to say about the guy who ended up taking over there. What are your thoughts about the state party right now, the Republican Party? It's dominant here in Texas, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think Republicans are dominant in Texas. The Republican Party of Texas is not dominant. In fact, I think they've made almost no difference whatsoever, with the possible exception of our former state chair, Matt Rinaldi, weighing in on some against some incumbents here and there. Yeah, look, my concern level is pretty high, and I think it's actually higher now with the new state chair who doesn't have any experience, has never had any success, and has some problems. So when you only have 4 paid staff in a state of 30 million people, there's a problem. When the victory chair quits for the first time in RPT history, that's a problem. When the convention is a total mess and loses money, that's a problem. And it's going to affect us in the fall. And so what I want to do is I want to unify the party outside of RPT and play a role in making sure Trump wins by the largest margin possible, Cruz wins re-election, and all the targeted races get the help that they need. And I'm going to be involved in that. There's a number of ways I can do that. I'm exploring that now. I respect the choice the delegates made. I respect the choice that Attorney General Paxton and others had in terms of candidates they supported. I got in with only 1 week to go because I was very concerned about where the party was financially and where it was headed. And unfortunately, I do think as that stands, it's going to get worse before it gets better.
But Matt, just drilling down on that real quick here, does it really change any outcomes? If nothing changes with the state party here in Texas come November, does that really change an outcome for a Trump on the ballot, for a Cruz on the ballot?
Yeah, in terms of an outcome, I don't think it changes Trump's outcome. He's going to win Texas. I think that's pretty much decided. The Cruz margin could be very close. In fact, Senator Ted Cruz has spent most of the last week trying to convince anyone who'll listen that this is a very close, very competitive race. I think 4 of the last 5 polls have shown it within the margin of error. Colin Allred has raised more money than Beto did this time 6 years ago. So, where RPT comes in is do they have the money to do an early vote by mail program? That's huge. I don't think they're going to have the money to do that. Are they able to do the cut rate postage program that all of our candidates rely on? There's a big question as to whether they can do that. These things are going to affect the margin. They'll affect Trump's margin, they'll affect Cruz's margin, and they'll affect the down ballot races that matter so much.
Matt Mackowiak, thanks for being with us. This has been an interesting election year already, and probably only going to thicken that plot as we head through the next several months. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Take care.